Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? If not, then we'll move on. Looking for a mover and seconder for the approval of council minutes held November 21st. Councillor Verbeke, Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Carried. And is there any business arising out of those minutes? I see none. So we'll move on to the Court of Revision. And as my usual lead-in is, Councillor Dunn and I are not members of this committee, so we will not be taking part, and Deputy Mayor McDonald is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to open the Court of Revision held on December 5th. I would need a motion moved by Councillor Verbeke, seconded by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? And that's carried. So the items for consideration this evening, I guess there's just one item. The engineer's report for the Glanders Drain, West Branch's new drain and enclosure construction. And for that, we'll turn it to Luann.
Sorry. At the last meeting, it was adjourned to look at the assessments for Mark Lane. And between the engineer and the owners, they have come to a decision, and that was the schedule that was sent out as revised. And seeing that nobody's here, I'm assuming that everything's okay with it.
Thanks, Luann. Are there any questions? Motion then to accept the recommendation, which is the construction schedule of assessment amended October 27th, 2016, and the future maintenance schedule of assessment amended October 27th, 2016 for the Glanders Drain, West Branches, Municipality of Leamington in the County of Essex, in accordance with Bylaw 5416, be confirmed. Seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All in favor? And that's carried. So I would need a motion to close the Court of Revision. Councillor Hammond, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There are no public meetings scheduled this evening, so we do have reports of staff delegations. The first one is one regarding the site plan approval for a 5-unit dwelling on 4856 George Avenue. Danielle.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson, members of council. We are seeking site plan approval for the construction of a 5-unit dwelling on a vacant parcel of land that is located on the southeast corner of Georgia Ave and Shirk Street. This property is designated for residential development in the official plan, and it was recently rezoned from R1 to R3-19. That zoning bylaw amendment was passed on October 24th of this year, and no appeals were received during the legislated time period. The site plan presented to council at that public meeting has been finalized, and it is attached to this report. The owner is looking to construct 5 units. They'd be under one ownership on one property, and in this case, one building. It will be constructed in a townhouse style manner. Each unit would have a separate entrance as well as a separate driveway. The owner is constructing a privacy fence along the eastern boundary of the property, and they will also maintain the existing fencing that is along the southern boundary property line. The site plan and the required servicing drawings have been reviewed. They meet all the provisions of the zoning bylaw as well as the development standards manual. We're recommending that the development be subject to the standard site plan agreement that will address such matters as securities for works that will be done on the municipal right-of-way, cash in lieu of parkland, as well as development charges and building permit issuance. There are no other financial impacts as a result of this development, and we are recommending that the site plan be approved and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute that agreement.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I have Councillor Jacobs and Verbeke. Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. First, I'd like to ask, why is this even before us? Because construction's already started. I see they got foundations are all dug and everything else. Why is this here now?
Foundation is actually in already, but Danielle, do you want to answer?
So we did discuss this at our development support meeting this morning. So Bashara, the CBO, was made aware that they had started construction, and he was going out this afternoon to investigate.
Okay, Councillor?
So under those circumstances now, they've began construction without a permit, so now is there this double the cost of the permit?
Mr. Neufeld?
Uh, that is the rule, that if construction under the definition has begun, what I have seen, and I will obviously leave it to our chief building officer, but what I have seen is that they have dug trenches, but there's no cement, there's no footings. They've prepared the property, and I'm not sure that that constitutes construction, because they haven't actually done anything other than dig some areas where the footings would go in. But again, I'll leave that to the chief building officer, but they can, my understanding is they can dig. They just haven't done anything that is of permanence. So if council were to not allow this to go forward this evening, and the project was canceled, they would simply move the dirt back into the holes, and the land would be restored. So technically, I don't believe that they have begun construction.
And if council thinks back to, this is pretty much the same thing we had with a large development that's happening on Seacliff Drive. The same considerations that we, the building official, everybody said that it was okay for them to dig in their own property, like you and I could, but not to build. So,
And the reason I brought that up is, yes, like I saw and I know it had come before us previously, then I saw this going on, then I seen this in the agenda for this evening, and I thought, okay, why is it, just a waste of our time if the case was that, we're just rubber stamping this, and I didn't want to go that route. So, thank you.
okay, Councillor Berbiki?
Well, now I have two questions. First question is to Peter's comment. It's funny, though, that we have to have permits for the farmers to dig holes in the ground. As soon as they put that first hole in the ground, it's considered building. I'll just leave it like that for now. That's what I was told from the building. So they have to be dug, and they have to have a building permit before they can dig, because this happened to one person north of town, and he was fined double. That's for the building inspector to figure out. I guess my one question is to Danielle, worthy mayor, are these rentals?
So it'll be 5 units on one piece of property. So yes, I would assume that they're going to rent the individual units.
Okay, no, because I was under the impression at one time that they were going to own them, but yet you suggest here that it's all under one ownership. So I thought before we talked about all individual owners. Thank you.
Just to the greenhouse posts, I remember we've been through this ever since I've been on council, and there was a point in time when, you're right, they couldn't even dig the holes before, but then council as a whole decided, yes, go ahead and dig the posts. But I think it might be when they start pouring the cements and putting the posts in the holes. But again, that would be up to our chief building official to make that point. So, yep. Councillor Hammond.
Your Worship, thank you. Danielle, I have a couple of questions, if I may. I noticed on the overview that we were provided with that they've got 2 large septic tanks. So what type of sewage is provided down in Georgia?
So this area is an area that's serviced by a combined sewer system. The holding tanks will augment that. When this development was first proposed as a zoning bylaw, it was reviewed by engineering. We wanted to make sure that there's capacity for the increased density. So they were satisfied that there was, and they'll be working with now the CBO with respect to the design of those to connect into the combined service.
Thanks, Danielle. And the other question was that I noticed in reading through it too that they're going to provide some barrier fencing. What kind of time frame do we allow? I'm thinking about some other ones that have happened that have dragged on for quite some time. I just wonder what kind of time frame that we allow. I know it's premature because they haven't even started building yet, but for putting up the fencing and things like that are required.
Under the terms of the standard agreement, they would have 1 year before we could enforce or require use securities, that type of thing. So typically 1 year. We find with fencing, they like to get the building constructed and the grading set so that they can put the fencing at the proper height.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions. We do have a recommendation before us then. What is council's wishes? Deputy Mayor is moving, supported by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? And carried. Next report is one regarding the Erie Shores Transit new bus purchase. Oh, did I skip one? I'm very sorry. Oh, sorry. Going back to 8.2, we still have the site plan control agreement amendment on 250 Erie Street South, which actually should be quite exciting to everybody to see happen. So, Danielle.
Thank you. So in 2014, Council approved a site plan agreement for 250 Erie Street South. I think we all commonly refer to that as the County Fair Mall or the Zellers Mall. With that site plan agreement, it included the demolition and renovation of the main mall building, as well as the construction of a standalone commercial building that would be located off the entrance off of Pulford. Upon approval, that agreement was signed by all the parties. The applicant actually provided us with a very significant security, and that would have allowed them to proceed with the development at that time. However, it did not proceed. The owner has indicated that due to the timing of the closure of the Canadian Target stores, that became their focus as an organization, and this became a lower priority. So they're now in a position to both commence and complete this project as it was approved in 2014. This is before us because the agreement requires that all the works be completed within 1 year. So they haven't started anything. They're now asking that we consider redating that agreement to be effective starting this year and would give them a year to complete that. We did discuss the timing with respect to the winter, and they feel that that's still within their timeline. And so in order to consider that, they have confirmed that none of the plans have changed. So the buildings as they were shown, the reconstructions as they were shown, servicing, everything is the same. It's been reviewed by administration. We just wanted to make sure that nothing's changed on our end since the first time we looked at it. That was mostly completed by engineering. They're satisfied that there's been no significant changes. And there would be no financial impact to the municipality as a result of that. Administration is in a position to recommend that the requested amendment to allow for the approved site plan agreement for that property to be redated for 1 year, to allow for the constructions of all facilities and works be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into that agreement.
Thank you. Questions? Moved by Councillor Jacobs. Support by Councillor Wilkinson. Discussion on the motion on the report? Yes, I'm very happy to see it happen, indeed. So, if not, then I'll call a question. All in favor of that recommendation? And carried. Now we'll move on to the report regarding the Erie Shores Transit new bus purchase. Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before you is to ask or to recommend that Council authorize the distribution of $43,000 from the Handy Transit Reserve Fund to the South Essex Community Council for purchase of a new bus. But I thought I might take some time to just share a little bit more about the transit, the South Essex Community Council, and how they provide handy transit to the community. So in the report, you'll see that I just noted that through the Erie Shores Transit System, they provide transportation services across Windsor and Essex County. They provide affordable door-to-door transportation, including service to Windsor and across Essex County, travel for appointments, socializing, errands, shopping, volunteering, or visiting friends and family. And the municipality desired to provide a public transportation system for the physically disabled and the frail and elderly within the municipality. And we entered into an agreement with South Essex Community Council to provide this service through the Erie Shores Transit. And if you have a look at, I know it's labeled as Schedule D, but we refer to it as Schedule B. It's just a map of the service area in Kingsville, Leamington, and the Wheatley area. So if you're traveling within Leamington, Wheatley, and Kingsville Monday to Friday, it's a flat rate per passenger of $12 for round trip or one way. Traveling to Amherstburg, Essex, Lakeshore, LaSalle, or Tecumseh Tuesday and Thursday is a flat rate of $17 for round trip or one way. And you can travel to Windsor Tuesdays and Thursdays for a flat rate of $25, and that's round trip or one way. That's just how the system is set up. It's the same cost to them either way, so they charge a flat rate. And again, you can see the service area in Schedule D. The South Essex Community Council holds similar agreements to the agreement that Leamington has with the municipality of Chatham-Kent and the town of Kingsville. Incidentally, this agreement ends December 31st, 2017, so we'll be working on a new agreement through next year and have that before council for consideration. And in the agreement, it notes that Leamington's share of the operations of the system is 50% of the cost, and that varies annually between $10,000 and $14,000, and that's based on ridership. And in addition to the annual operating cost, the municipality of Leamington also agreed to allocate $5,000 per year as a capital reserve contribution toward the purchase of a new bus. And Kingsville and Chatham-Kent both allocate the same amount, but the South Essex Community Council allocates $10,000 a year towards the purchase of a new bus. So in 2016, before the end of the year actually, South Essex hopes to purchase that new bus. So they're asking by way of letter, and that's attached to the report, that we release the $43,000 to South Essex for them to purchase the bus. And we did check, and there is in fact just over $43,000 in our handy transit reserve. So we are recommending that council approve this recommendation.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Worship. Alan, in the pickup area, does this bus go to the residents to pick these individuals up, or is there a common so-called bus stop where they have to go first and then they're...
As I understand it, it's door-to-door. It's a door-to-door service. So they'll come to your residence or where you arranged for pickup.
So, okay, so just basically like a cab then there as a resident store. That's a great service.
Yes, it is. Yep. Deputy Mayor?
Ellen, and maybe you don't know this, do people book it? Because what I'm seeing, and I don't have a problem with this, but are we having some overlap then with our own bus system? Is this more convenient because they're coming to the houses? Because I'm seeing it's physically disabled and frail elderly, and I'm thinking that's probably who's using our transit system quite a bit as well. So are we having a duplication of services? Just because I'm seeing a bit of overlap.
To answer your first question, if you want to ride this bus, you call South Essex Community Council and you talk to a dispatcher and they make an appointment and they'll pick you up. And they have a schedule there and they take care of that. Our Leamington Transit requires that you're mobile, that you can get on and off the bus yourself or with your chair. This service will actually help you get on to the bus and get off the bus.
Further questions? If not, then I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Dunn and Deputy Mayor second. Support on that motion? Or I mean, yes. All in favor of that motion? I'm sorry. Opposed? Carried. Yep. Just one of those days. Final report is one regarding the Hydro One request for a temporary access agreement. Oh, Ms. Orton, okay.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. As Council may recall, on October 3rd, Council approved a request by Hydro One Networks for the municipality to grant 6 easements along the former rail corridor for construction of the Essex County Transmission Reinforcement Project. Council did approve those easements, and in order to facilitate construction on the easement lands, Hydro One has requested temporary access over further parts of the former corridor, and the locations are shown in red on the aerial photos that are attached to the report, and they're essentially at the beginning and the end of the easement lands. A draft temporary access agreement has been prepared, and it includes the following provisions: that the access be for the purpose of access roads and a laydown area for the transport of material and equipment to the easement lands. The access term be for 2 years with the right to extend for up to an additional 6 months. Hydro One would repair any physical damage to the access lands resulting from its activities and the typical indemnity and release provisions. There's no consideration given to the municipality in connection with the grant of the temporary access. However, as you will recall, Hydro One will be paying just slightly over $399,000 for the actual easements over the easement lands. So the recommendation is that council authorize the entering into of a temporary access agreement in respect of the lands as listed in the report, and that the Director of Legal and Legislative Services be authorized to sign the temporary access agreements.
Questions from council? Anybody, Deputy Mayor, would move the recommendation supported by Councillor Dunn? Discussion on that motion? All in favor? And carried. There were no matters for approval, other matters for consideration, and no closed session, so we have consideration of bylaws.
Bylaw 80-16 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held December 5th, 2016.
Looking for mover and seconder. Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Jacobs. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Carried. And there were no notices of motion circulated, so we're into open session for council and admin. Councillor Verbeke.
Were the Mayor, two questions. I guess through Rob, I guess I'm happy to see that the sewer grates on 77 are almost completed. I know Shepley's doing it, but is it the town, is it MTO? And we're still getting complaints from truck drivers because it's just not right. But I'm trying to explain you can't go higher than the pavement because they'll be zinging off with the snowplow. So it is better, but I just didn't know. I'm just curious who's paying for this.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. Councillor, if a truck driver says that to you, you should remind the truck driver they should be going around, because that's a no truck route. Just a little bit of history. So it is the municipality. We are fixing it. It is our road, and we recognize it is a problem. And the ability to fix these and having somebody local with the equipment has just recently been made available to us. So that's why we're fixing it. It's actually a little bit more challenging than you would think, it should be. But that road, the reason, and I think I've mentioned this to council before, but just to touch on it again, the reason that those manhole covers seem so problematic in that road is the orientation of where the sewers actually exist. And unfortunately, the manholes are in both where your wheels will go in the lanes of travel, right? You basically hit the storm sewer, you hit the sanitary sewer when you're heading south. The reason for that is that there was a very late change to the design of Erie Street North when that was being reconstructed, and it was primarily related to the adding of bike lanes. So bike lanes came in late into that process, and therefore, unfortunately, the manholes are located where they're located. So it is us paying for it. We are fixing it, and the manholes will have to be there. There's no way to move them without either changing, the lanes of traffic and having a new road profile. But we're hoping that, they're not going to be perfect. You're still going to be running over a manhole, but it should be a lot better than what it was.
Just to let you know that a friend of mine did get pulled over by the police for driving, trying to avoid him at 8:30 in the morning, thinking he was still intoxicated. But thank you, great job, and I also want to compliment you on a job well done for the Smith to Wilkinson Drive. It looks great, the trail, so looking forward, and I just can't believe that some people are still driving on the third concession, not using the bike lane.
Okay. Other questions, comments from council or staff? No? No? Real quick then. Tuesday, November 22nd, CAO and I were invited to make a presentation to the Board of Directors of the WFCU up in Windsor. So we certainly did our best to portray Leamington's future as all of us have visioned it to be. So I think there's an intent behind that, but we'll see what develops from that. Also that same day, the South Essex Community Council hosted Joe Roberts and the Push for Change here in Leamington. Councillor Dunn and I were in attendance there, Mayor Nelson Santos as well, and a fair crowd turned out for that. Nice little presentation and quite a learning session for this gentleman who was a homeless kid himself at one point in time. Couldn't get much lower than where he was going. And it was an OPP officer that actually rescued him. His mom first, and then this officer second, and he ended up becoming the CAO or CEO of his own company. Retired now as a young man because he's did so well. So he's just that shining example of what can happen if all the right things fall in place at the right time. Thursday, November 24th, we had the opportunity to be at Palmas Farms, who was the host for Union Gas announcing its finalization of the gas line expansion into Leamington. Saturday, November 26th, I bright and early in the morning, down to Shoppers Drug Mart for the grand reopening of their a beauty boutique, I think it is. And I said, I don't know why you invited me, but at the same time, well, I don't think there's any help for that. But it's only the second one in Canada. It's such a high-profile section of their store now, and I don't know if you've been in, but you haven't. It's a great time to do some Christmas shopping, maybe. So all the dignitaries were down from head office, and it was a quick opening ceremony, but one worth being at. Again, that night, many of you, I suspect, were at the Chamber of Commerce annual Christmas parade, and I've heard nothing but glowing reports about it. So another successful one under the hat. On Monday, November 28th, I was invited up through our tourism manager, Kira, to attend the Windsor-Essex Community Foundation annual general meeting, where we were presented with a check for help funding the fireworks that we will be putting on during the Canada 150 campaign. So we're one of a very few groups that were invited to that evening. And finally, the CAO, our Economic Development Officer, and I have had a few meetings very quietly here at Town Hall with prospective investors, be it in the tourism industry or just in industry itself, just letting you know that there's a little bit of action going on in the background. You never know what it will develop into, but just so you know that we are busily working in the quiets of Town Hall on our behalf. So that's it. Statements, members, non-debatable. Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question. I requested quite a while ago, and Mr. Our CAO, regarding maybe we could have some presentation, not something in a lot of detail regarding our statistics on the buildings and where we're at. I'm not looking for something really involved. I know it's on our website and everything else, but I think it's nice we can get out to the public that where we're going since we've introduced our development charge I guess, abatement, and just so that people are aware of what's going on and how many millions are actually being spent.
No, but he can certainly ask the question what he needs to, not debate it. But
yes, we're aware that we want to bring something to council. I think, if I remember correctly, the question also included what are the benefits that we would be gaining through the taxation. We need a little more time to be able to obtain that information, but we can bring a report that talks strictly about the growth that we've had. We just wouldn't be able to link to that at this point, the tax implications going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I guess I'm not looking for something that's going to be a lot of time consumed in providing something. I think it'd just be interesting, or for the general public to see exactly what's going on. I know we all get reports on it, so thank you.
Anything else from council? Councillor Verbicki.
Mr. Mayor, just to let you know that today is World Soils Day by the United Nations, and the theme this year is Soils and the Pulse of the Symbolics of Life. And in our region of Essex County, just passed to me from Michael Dick, our county is 80% land base is used for agricultural, and I don't know where we're going to get our food in another 20 years.
Okay, thank you very much. If that's everything, then looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Dunn, Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? And carried.